Welcome to the fine print, ladies and gentlemen. I am your host, Caleb Teskey. I want to thank you all for joining us tonight. I want to take a quick minute, as always, off the top here to thank my last guest, John Tomasoni. John, had a great time chatting it up with you, buddy. I hope business is going well over there, and you're selling all the pizzas. The last couple too, Trent Hancock, killer interview out there from Oregon, talking about some of the lab testing irregularities. Really good stuff. We had some connection issues, but Trent's a super well informed guy, and I hope we can get him back on the show here. Tonight we got another great guest, and I feel like I say this every time, and it's because I get great guests for you guys. We got them lined up. I still got another 80 people in my queue that you're gonna just love. I've been trying to chip away at the list, but it seems to grow as fast as I shrink it. Anyway, our guest tonight is someone I've been chatting with for quite a while. Linked up through the Young Jurks on Mike Crawford's show. Shout out to Mike here. But we've got, and I know I've interviewed a couple other employees from Trulieve, Alex Miller and James Deese. And tonight we've got a former Trulieve employee from Massachusetts. Let's bring out my guest. It's Danny Carson. Danny, welcome to the show, man. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it, Caleb.
Before we get into anything serious, will you give us a 5-minute life story?
Yeah. My name's Danny. My pronouns are he or they. I was born and raised in Massachusetts, in a really small town. Most people have never heard of it, called Petersham, Massachusetts. There's less than 1,000 people in it, and I swear they're all kind of like family. So I was there until I was 18. And after I graduated high school, I went to nursing school for like 6 months, dropped out, found out college really wasn't my thing, and joined the Air Force one day. And that kind of lines up with my mom and dad were both in the Air Force when I was growing up. So it was kind of something I always aspired to do, and then I just kind of did it when I was like 19. And so I was active duty Air Force from the age of 19 until 6 years later. I got out at the age of 25, and so while I was in, I did a lot of good stuff. I was in the honor guard, so I did that for a year, doing ceremonies and funerals and things like that, carrying caskets and full flags. That was definitely a really big part of my career there. And the other 5 years, basically, I spent it in vehicle management, and helped, with special operations forces in Florida for 4 years, um, basically getting anybody their vehicles that they need in order to do their mission, making sure they're maintained properly, etc. Um, I did a lot of um, like really, I had a lot of really great experiences as well. I was active duty, and I definitely am grateful for the experience of the good times. But there was definitely a lot of tough times through all of that that really just like compounded and made me want to get out. So when I got out, I was a operations manager at a manufacturing company in DC, and that was during COVID. I had 30 employees that reported to me at the time, and I had to lay all of them off uh, due to COVID. We had no supply, and that crushed me. Like as a human being, I care very much about my people and my employees, and um, after that, I just decided I gotta be near family, so I moved back to Massachusetts.
You had to fire them yourself?
Yeah, I had to lay them all off. Yeah,
Bummer.
yeah. As being a young person, also going through that, never having to lay anybody off before, it was horrible to do that. 5 people every for months until it was literally just me turning the lights on at the end of in the morning and turning them off at night. And then eventually, I just was like, I'm gonna move back to Massachusetts and be near family. And that's when I started kind of rethinking what I was doing and who I was, like really what my purpose was. And maybe it wasn't the military anymore. Maybe it wasn't working in manufacturing anymore, where it's like a really tough industry to be in general. It's a lot of hard work and hard hours. And so I was like, I'm back in Massachusetts. I'm looking around. There's dispensaries everywhere all of a sudden. I had just started smoking weed because, um, to be honest, I smoked a little when I was like 18 years old. And then when I joined the military, I didn't use any cannabis at all for 6 years. And I went from, being a raging alcoholic my entire 6 years of active duty and thinking like that's totally normal, to becoming sober and, just using cannabis to kind of help me get through a lot of things that alcohol just like pushed down for so many years. And so I became really passionate about it. And I was like, maybe this is, what I want to do. And I'll try it out. And I ended up getting my first job in cannabis for Trulieve. And I worked for them for probably like 6 months, before I just like couldn't take it anymore. And I it was like a mutual. I was just like, I can't work here and you won't help me. So I ended up leaving there. And I started working for smaller companies, like Boston Bud Factory and like Milltown Agriculture. And um, but like I immediately started trying to help this company, cannabis company that couldn't open. They were like struggling to open, back like years ago now. Um, the Alchemy League. It was a black-owned business in Massachusetts that still has not opened to this day. I just volunteered my time with several other people that I actually had left Truly at the same time I did. We all just got together and volunteered together every day to try and like get their SOPs together for them and like contact people for their marketing to get things set up and rolling and train the people on how to use Dutchie and all these different systems they were going to have to use because we all knew how to use it. And we were trying so hard to help them open and still they have not opened to this day. It's just like a sad story, and it's a one that a lot of people in this industry feel. And then on the other side of that, kind of right after I started working for small businesses, I find out that Lorna passed away. And Lorna is one of my employees that reported to me while I worked at Trulieve. Um, and I was really close with her. We were friends. I brought her to work and brought her home, and we went out to festivals together and things like that. Like we got to know each other quite well, and so to find out somebody like has passed that way, and then find out the circumstances in which they passed, uh, it was it really shook me, and I was like, I wasn't gonna speak out about, the problems I had with Trulieve because I frankly, at at times felt like, um, it's just hard to stick up for yourself sometimes, Um, but when you see that, like, they're capable of doing just horrible things and, making decisions, like business decisions based around, you know, hateful things and just terrible ways of treating people and their employees. Um, it became, clear to me after Lorna's death that something needed to change there in the industry. So I've really, dedicated a lot of my time in the last year, really, trying to make change in the cannabis industry in Massachusetts and the way that workers are treated, um, their work environments, and ensure that they have all the information they need, all the resources they need to do their job, and do it and come home at the end of the day, if not the same way they went to work, at least, if not better than how they went to work, at least the same way they went to work, you know? Um, they shouldn't fear not having to come home. So I've really just now started like dedicating a lot of my time and energy into that, to try and change. So that kind of brings me to tonight.
Cool. I want to back you up a little bit here. Um, and your sound is a little scratchy. I just want to let you know, it's you can make out most of it. There's like a word missing here and there. So as long as you don't mind, I'm going to keep going.
Yeah,
But it is okay. Cool. I wanted to back you up though, and I want to ask you. You said you weren't like a big weed smoker. You did a little when you were a teenager, and then you took some time off of the military, and then you came out and sort of landed this job with Trulieve. Did you have any experience going into this job?
no. So as far as it relates to cannabis, I had no cannabis experience. I had not grown. I've been just barely, shopped around dispensaries. I didn't have like knowledge in the past of, what it would be like to process a huge bag of bud. Like I'd never seen anything like this. It's a huge, huge place. This is not a small place. Um, and so yeah, no, I didn't have any experience really except for like the functional duties of the job, which was supply chain functions, which I did have experience in. Making sure that their vehicles that they were going to be delivering all this cannabis in was up to inspection, standards, and that's how I got to know compliance a lot through that, like reading through all of the regulations from the CCC. And I started, as far as like inventory goes as well, like that was one of my functions and something that I did while I was active duty, in like a vehicle maintenance warehouse. So I had experience with that, but not as it relates to cannabis. And so when I worked there, I was like a sponge, just like trying to soak up everything that all the information that was available, and really learned a lot about metric and how that's used, and like back ways of doing things in metric to get through.
I thought I had
And
my fuck metric T-shirt on. Nope, different one.
that's funny.
Carry on.
It's people think that it's just like a perfect system. It really isn't. And it's something that, you know, there's a lot of ways to get around things. Like once you know it, you can get to know it pretty easily. And um it was concerning to see like how compliance was really like being treated there. I'm somebody that like in the Air Force, like everything is black and white. It's written out, and the right way to do something, everything, it's all there. And so when you have nothing to go by, you have no SOPs, and you have to start from scratch, and you have to start these processes, you don't know how they're going to go. It's definitely challenging, and especially on top of that, not having any knowledge about cannabis, about any kind of like hazards associated with the work of it. Um, they didn't provide training or insight as to like what I could expect or the history of it, so that I could really understand that aspect. Like that's all
No,
stuff I had
no
to learn and
training.
pick up. There was no training whatsoever for this.
Wow.
Yeah,
I want to say wow, but I'm not surprised.
right, exactly. I've worked also for Curaleaf,
Oh no
and
shit.
it was the same there. There's no training. Everything's just like talk to this person every day for a few weeks, and they'll tell you what you can do, and then you just do that forever until you leave. It's like this is not how like this is not, there's no job description really. It's just like everything could possibly be your job, and um you're expected to like really like push through it all and figure it all out, and that's, you know, I'm pretty good at navigating and doing that. So like I did that while I was at True. I pushed through and did that for months, and like I ended up finding a lot of issues, and they didn't like that at all. And at one point, I was the metric administrator for that entire facility. So I was the one who was giving access to the system to all of these new people that were showing up because it was just starting out. And I was like, I told my boss about a compliance issue that I had found, that the one of the production managers was stealing vape carts, and like I found evidence of it, and it was like they could have easily checked the cameras. I think they just didn't want to fire the guy because they like knew he was a good worker, like one of those stories. So
Is he a good worker if he's stealing from you?
right, it's like these people, man, I don't get it, but I they didn't like that I even, like, brought it up, and they took away all of my access one day. They just took it all away, and they were just like, um, "You're no longer going to have this as a duty." And then, like, within a couple of hours, I was fired. And, it was just, like, absolute nonsense working there, and, yeah, crazy.
What was the starting pay, if you don't mind me asking?
My role was decently paid, and looking back on it, you can clearly see because Trulieve has like this clear distinction between like who they pay well and who they don't pay well. And I like, like I started out when I said, my pronouns are he or they, like just to clarify, at the time I was presenting as a female and I was coming with a background that was pretty extensive, and they gave me the job based on my, inventory skills and things like that, and so I was a salaried position, and most everybody else, all the people who are doing the actual hard work of literally rolling thousands of joints a day, like, I've also done those positions after the fact, and it's hard work. They are not compensated well enough for it. Like, people who were on my team were like Lorna, were making 16.50, $18 if they were a driver.
Damn. That's like the McDonald's down the road pays 17 or 18 here.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and these people are working their asses off too. It's not like, they get to sit in a cubicle in an AC room. Like, they're all busting their ass with production managers who are telling them to work even harder and making this money that barely affords them to pay for rent when they split a house with another person. So, what kind of quality of life are you making for the community if you're going to pay your employees at that rate? That's something that's in most cannabis companies, action plans when they first get their licensure from the city. Like, you can read through their positive impact plans that they had planned out to do. It's like at the bare minimum, like you could at least just pay your employees well. Like, they haven't done that, and that would have been huge for the community.
Damn. Um, there was something else I wanted to slip in there. Um, yeah, so okay, so the workers below you poorly paid. You say at least you got a decent salary. You're the first person I've heard say that so far, so that's cool.
Yeah,
At
yeah,
least
no.
someone's getting paid. um, can you tell me a little bit like was there anything else you saw when you were working for Trulieve? I don't know, OSHA violations, things that you saw that were maybe unsafe or that just bothered you during your time there?
Yeah, absolutely. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me though? Caleb?
Wait, I forgot my mic's off when the stream's here. Yeah, I can hear you. The sound's a little fucked up, but
Weird feedback on my end, so I just want to make sure.
yeah, no,
This brings
it's getting a little crackly. I heard this happen when you were on Mike's show also. Uh,
yeah,
if it gets too bad, I might have to pause this here, but I could still hear you.
uh, yeah, I can try to yeah, we'll see how it goes. It's kind of
But
coming in and out. Is it okay?
yeah, well, if you want to restart your phone real quick. I'll do a couple of shout outs here. I want to put this up here first. If you can still hear me, this is from Amanda Pelkey up here. Danny, please contact me. And then This was Mike Crawford saying, I also say I have a great guest too, but it's true. What are you going to do? Yeah, if you want to try restarting, I'll be here. I'll wait for you.
Thank you.
All right. All right. We're going to give Danny a little chance to restart the phone here. Can only do so much about these, technical difficulties, but I do try to power through, but I don't like to, I want everybody to be able to hear him. In the meantime, shameless plug for my guys, Troy and Michelle over at Highly Rooted. Thank you, guys. If you guys don't know, there's some edible manufacturers up here in Vermont, in Morrisville. Great people. They also have a nonprofit where they help cancer patients get access to cannabis. Wonderful human beings. Great edibles. Let's see if we get Danny back. As always, shameless shout out for Tom, the ganja delivery guy. Tommy just got his license up here, I believe. He just got his cultivation license. I'm psyched to see what Tommy's going to be coming to play with. Tom's always got some whatever he's got. It's always good. Jen, I hope you guys fucking kill it over there. Shameless plug. Oh, I got my hickory. Let's see. We got Danny back here. We're gonna. Shameless plug to Pressure Labs, Nate at Pressure Labs. Let's see, Danny. We got Danny back. I just got done my shameless plugs.
Yeah, can you hear me okay now?
Yeah, that sounds a little better.
All right, great. Thank you so much for your patience. Okay, so this actually brings up a great point that I want to bring up tonight in this conversation is my phone only acts weird when I'm talking about Trulieve stuff or working on Trulieve stuff. Like,
Are you serious?
I'm not joking you. So I along with other whistleblowers have been having interruption in our anything technology wise at our homes. Like Wi-Fi, security cameras, like images being like distorted like crazy. Like it's
So
very
Alex Miller wasn't alone on that.
yeah, no, I have it too.
Wow. You
Uh
showed me some of the videos. There was some strange looking stuff on those videos.
yep, me too. It happened to my security camera shortly after it happened to him. We're in contact and we're in contact like every day about like kind of like what's going on because it was that active. Um, but yeah, I've been approached by private investigators to be intimidated on Trulieve's behalf because of my kind of work in this. And I've had my home photographed and uh, definitely had some really like weird things happen, cars following us. So, I mean, it's been going on for months. It's intimidation more than it is like a threat of violence. It's just like more like, don't forget who we are and what money we have, basically, to me and to the other whistleblowers dealing with this. Um, so yeah, these things, I know like every time I do a show with Mike or have a phone call with somebody, in an organization that would be like helping with this, it's always like weird interferences happening. So
And that doesn't happen like on other calls.
no,
Wow.
I could have phone calls with like a friend, who has nothing, is living in Nevada, and it doesn't happen. But I'll have like dropped calls with other people and like clicking and like feedback like we've had here.
Wow.
So strange. But like they've also paid to have posts taken down. Like the recently the Leafly taking down their four-part.
Before we do that, can I interrupt you for a second? I want to back you up. You said they were photographing your house.
Yeah.
What does that entail? Like,
So
were you home when that was happening?
yeah, so then it happened the night I had my first safety committee workers like safety committee meeting. Um after the meeting was over, I had a phone call. It was followed up. It was like really great. I was like making a lot of connections, and people from outside organizations were starting to help. And within hours, it was like just dark outside. It was about like 9 o'clock. Um, I was just looking out the window of my kitchen, and my house at the time was like very close to the road, and it was a pretty busy road, but there's no place on the road to like pull over. Like it's a very residential place. So like people pass by all the time, but nobody parks there. But this car parked right near, like in my line of sight of the kitchen window. So like I could see them, and then took like flash photography of the house, and then I, like, started to leave, like, to go out the door to, like, go approach the vehicle because I was like, "Who are they?" And, they drove away super quick, and they had no I had, taken a video from my phone on it, and there's no front plate on the vehicle, and so I couldn't get any, like, information on it, but um, that was kind of like the first sighting of all this kind of happening.
So they're taking so you can see like the flash going off
Right.
from inside. Boy, it's almost like they want you to see that.
Yeah,
Otherwise, you could just
exactly.
do it like during the day or something. It
Yeah.
wouldn't. Yeah, weird.
Yeah, it really seems like it just that's what makes it feel like it's intimidation. Um, because it's just like very obvious. It's not like they have a private investigator that's trying to understand, what I do, or like trying to catch me doing something shady. Like, first off, I'm just like a really family person, so they would be uninterested. But um, I like it's that they're sending somebody to remind me of, to be quiet basically, or else. And like I think the one thing, like the biggest thing for me was like after that happened, my family was like shaken up. Like my wife, I have a 4-year-old daughter, like we're all like making sure that we're protected. We're, in a different state than where our family is at. And so we're all kind of like worried. I had taken the day off of work and I stay home, and I brought my daughter to the mall, and we're in the mall for probably like a good hour or so. And then we're about to leave, and we're walking out the door, and this guy, really well dressed, but wearing a baseball hat that says Trulieve on it, middle-aged white guy, looks just like an old police officer that's now a private investigator, comes up to me and my daughter, and he is probably just like 2 feet from me, and says, "Oh, nice shoes," to my daughter, because they were like light up shoes that she was jumping on, and whatever, and then stops and like looks at me, like waiting for a response from me, as if like I need to read the hat kind of thing. It was extremely, I was just like, wow, is this really happening right now? I was so shaken up. Um,
So
so
a little bit of stalking, a little bit of
yeah,
intimidation. Damn,
yeah, crazy stuff.
that must be stressful.
It definitely is. Uh, it definitely is. I honestly, I have PTSD, and um, from being in the military, it's called MST PTSD. It's a special kind of military sexual trauma PTSD.
Damn.
I was sexually assaulted by a supervisor when I was active duty, and I was
Sorry to
also
hear that, man.
an intimidated witness. Intimidation happened to me during that court case. And now I'm getting this kind of happening, so it's definitely been really tough, and I'm really at the point where, like, me and my wife just had to like to have a conversation of like, what are we gonna do, kind of thing. And it's just like so evident and clear to us that like we have to keep being in the spotlight and keep talking about this, because otherwise these people just continue to win, and they just get to just move to the next state and do the same thing. So we've kind of just like come to the conclusion, like we move, we're in a good spot, we have security cameras, we feel better, more comfortable, and we're just gonna, and I just have just gonna keep what I'm doing and help make change no matter what. So um, yeah, I stayed up one night. I walked around the neighborhood. Uh, I haven't seen him lately. So I'm we're still pushing forward.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, I wanted to ask you about Lorna. Maybe you could tell people, for people that might not be familiar, maybe you could give us the 30,000-foot view on that story and just tell us what happened. And because obviously when I interviewed Alex Miller and James Dees from down in Florida, I asked them, I was like, did they tell you that happened? They were like, no, we heard about it on social media.
yeah, yeah. It's super sad. I talked to a person at a Trulieve employee, not just 2 weeks ago, who said they work in production and they've worked there. They started working there right after she had passed away, and he never heard her name, never heard the story, didn't know somebody had died there, and has worked there for a year, and that was like crazy, to know that like somebody has passed away. So Lorna passed away, unfortunately, due to work conditions at Trulieve's processing facility in Holyoke, Massachusetts. So, uh, you know, she's 27 years old, otherwise healthy person. Um, we worked together for a few months. I knew her decently well and heard that she had passed away. I wasn't there that day, but really what happened is she was grinding up flour for putting it into pre-rolls, and the dust from all the flour that was being, ground, along with any mold that might have been on it that day, um, along with not having ventilation in there and not wearing a proper mask or respirator. Um, she had a terrible asthma attack, and she was pronounced, brain dead, and was on life support for a few days, and then ultimately passed away from it. Um, and this is the only time that somebody has died from this. Uh, but it's not the only time somebody's been affected. And I'm not even like confident in the fact that nobody else has ever died from this. I think we just haven't maybe even heard of it. But she died from cannabis dust
Mm.
and whatever else was on that cannabis dust that we may not ever know.
Well, as
Uh,
we saw, I mean, they clearly, when I interviewed Mike the first time, that was in September last year. And that was the first time I had heard of it, the first time I talked to Mike, like a few weeks prior. So I figured it happened in like August or something. He's like, no, it happened in January. Like, okay,
yeah,
so they covered it up.
right, right.
And
Uh,
wasn't she also taken out of there in a hospital with similar conditions like a couple months prior?
yep, yep, she was. She had an asthma attack at work. They got her by ambulance to the hospital. She recovered from that. But, you know, then a few weeks later, um, whatever the circumstances were that day, maybe her lungs weren't fully recovered from the first time, or um, maybe the mold on the flour or anything that they were using exacerbated the condition. But that day, everything went wrong and she died. It was, you know, a lot of things happened. Uh, Not only was she having an asthma attack, but there was nothing there to help save her. Nobody was trained on CPR. There was no AED. There was no
No,
respirator.
nobody.
Nobody.
Wow.
And they called the ambulance, when they got to the facility. This is a giant facility, 4 stories of grow rooms and processing rooms and offices and all of this stuff. So to explain to somebody where she is and then get them there, because every door in there is locked with a key badge, it's it's hard to get a response quick enough to be able to save a life. By that time, she was brain dead. Like the response time was so delayed, and to even like compound that issue even further, they were stopped at the door and told that they needed to follow their good manufacturing procedure process by putting on a Tyvek suit and stuff like that so they wouldn't contaminate the grow. And it's
Wow.
like, really? Like and it's not even like their fault, but like there was no plan. There's no plan. And you have a facility that's, hundreds of thousands of square feet, and you don't have any contingency operation plan. You have no safety plan. You have nothing. You don't even have the proper ventilation. Like, they spend, millions on, truly spends millions on bills and things that would help them as a company. But they have not spent a dime to help workers. And that's really, this story is like, eh, they don't care. And the only reason, the only way that I see that to make them care is to have people get together and organize and unionize themselves to make them care, or put policy in place that's going to hold them accountable so that they will be made to sure that they and take care of workers. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, what was the I know they got a little slap on the wrist fine, and I feel like at first it was like $36,000, and then it got cut in half or something to like 17, and then it got cut again to like 9,000.
yeah.
Was is that accurate?
Ultimately went down to like $9,000 or $5,000. Like it's ridiculous. Like,
That's the cost of a human life. Like,
like to me, yeah, sure, that's expensive, but to a company that's literally they're traded on the public market in Canada. So like these people have millions, and that's nothing. The rent alone for that size of a building would be like $40,000 a month. So like a
whoa.
5,000, you know what I mean? Like a $5,000 fine is, or nine or whatever it is. It's not enough. Part of me wants to say like it never could be enough. Like you can't put a price on a life, of course, but to have a slap on a wrist that just like that is just like it's a slap in the face to people like her family, her friends, me. Like all of these people are just like hoping somebody will hold this company accountable, and nobody has done it yet. And
Did you read the press release that they put out about it?
oh yeah, about them pulling out of Massachusetts.
No, no, the press release about after Lorna died, they came out with a press release.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
yeah, what did you think of that?
Um, I thought it's exactly what you can expect. Like they're not taking any accountability. They are barely, doing anything to even try and make people feel comfortable about the situation. They just don't care. It's just like so political, and like I was at the funeral for Lorna. Um, there was no Trulieve management there. There was nobody there, like there was barely any other coworkers there because they were all kind of scared to go, I think, because of the way that Trulieve handled this. They wanted to push it under the rug. They wanted this to just go away and just let it be a slap on the wrist, like they've gotten in the past from OSHA and Florida and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, her husband in jail for bribing public officials.
yeah, exactly.
Mm. And so I wanted to ask you about the mask thing because it sounded like no respirators or anything were provided. I watched that woman from NIOSH on the Young Jerks. That was a interesting piece. Was there any type of personal protective equipment offered to the employees there in Holyoke?
No, so when we talk about personal protective equipment, like the appropriate personal protective equipment would have been a fit tested respirator for Lorna, I believe. But the only thing that was given was just like COVID masks. There was no talk even of this being hazardous. There was no training of like, making sure that the ventilation was on, or anybody checking the ventilation to make sure it was sufficient. Um, I mean, literally, we were in like a closet of a bigger room doing all of this grinding and processing. So, you can imagine the particle counts that could be in the air at any given time in there. So like I feel an appropriate PPE for that would have been a fit tested respirator. But it doesn't have to be reliant upon PPE. Like there should have been guards around the machine. There should have been more engineered controls in place before you have to even rely on an employee to put something on their face. Like there should have been proper ventilation there. When they first made the building and did all this work, they put millions of dollars into this to refurbish this old factory building. Um, they did nothing in that room to for any ventilation. They had like a small HVAC like kind of vent, um, and like a small just like removable ventilation. Um, but it wasn't even turned on that day that she had passed away. Somebody said that that ventilation was too loud and they wanted to listen to music instead, and they didn't turn it on. And there was
Wow.
no supervisor there. They're in a closed, locked room that's like the size of somebody's walk-in closet. Like it's really, really small. There's six of them. I mean, the entire thing was just set up for this to happen, and it's so sad. Um, but even to this day, I continued to go. I went to the facility to do a free food for cannabis workers event and try and give them information on what a health hazard evaluation is because they had one scheduled by NIOSH. And we were out there and I did get to talk to a worker and ask them like, if they put any ventilation in place, or do they have respirators now, or do they have safety training now? No, no, no. They have nothing still. They still
Wow.
only have COVID masks for their workers working in processing. And if they want a respirator, they have to go to management and ask them. But they're so scared to talk to management about it that they won't go into it.
It seems like most of the people I've talked to that have tried to approach management with concerns just get like ignored or immediately shot down,
Yeah,
dismissed.
right. Yeah, absolutely. Um, the Trulieve's management is really like a gang. It's like they all work together. They're all like can like I one time near the end of my time at Trulieve joined a emergency Teams meeting. It was like a Zoom call with like 15 people on it from upper management. And I joined and they were literally all talking badly about me. And I was like, "Oh my God."
I've been like, hey, what are you guys talking about?
I was like, hello. Um, did you want to talk to me about this?" And they were all just like, yeah, well, maybe we can end this call." And I was just like, what
How
the,
long have you been standing there?
yeah, it's like for real. Oh my
Damn.
God. Yeah, yeah, crazy. That's just like the kind of environment and like culture that they have there. It brings this kind of intimidation and uh just like this weird group that really like wants to take other people down. They don't It's not what cannabis should be about at all. It's terrible.
I'm with you. I'm with you there. I do want to ask you about sort of like you said, they try to cover this up really, and it was Mike Crawford. I don't know about for you, but that's where I heard about it.
Yeah.
And that's how I ended up having Mike on the show. Would you talk a little bit about, because I know you've been on the Young Jerks as well. I've seen some of the interviews. It's fantastic stuff. I'd like to hear your thoughts on Mike and the work he's done, maybe to help expose
Yeah.
this and the collaborations between you two.
Oh, definitely. Mike has been paramount in getting this information out. Nobody else came to me, you know, he reached out instantly to talk to me once the media kind of found out about it, and he wanted to know more. And um, he was a respectful person, and um, he did exactly what he said he was going to do, which was to bring attention to this, to make sure that her story was told. And I mean, he's been there every step of the way. We work very closely on this, and I mean, I'm so grateful. I know Lorna's family is very grateful for everything Mike's been doing, um, through everything that he does. But he's also recently had the Cannabis Workers Award show, which was awesome, and I was awarded um, something there, and he's been so helpful. I think without him, people wouldn't know about this, and they wouldn't know a lot of things. This isn't even the only thing that's, they've done and issue that they have. And I think Mike's been able to bring a lot of attention to that, which is very needed because this media censorship, especially around cannabis, is outrageous. And it's criminal. And I think that, Mike's just done an awesome job. The Young Jerks podcast is great. And I think it's just going to continue to get even better. More followership means more people learning about it, more conversations can be had, and more change can come of it. And so I'm really grateful to be able to do as many podcasts with him that I have.
Hell yeah. It's been really good stuff.
Yeah,
Talking to you and Alex and James, it's like, oh wow, the same bullshit happening in different states. Almost like it's not a mistake. It's like a feature, not a bug.
right. Exactly. Yeah.
And Mike, yeah, shameless plug for Mike because he did do a great job getting this out, got into the Globe,
Yeah.
and then it got into what the I can't remember the name of that magazine right offhand, but whoever that independent journalist was publishing in a magazine, oh, it'll come to me eventually.
Yeah.
But then it got up to Leafly, right? And this comes back to the point you made earlier, and then it looks like Trulieve is paying people to remove article. It looks like actually, I think Mike posted earlier that was like $1 million ad buy or something, and so it looks like this series has been pulled down from Leafly.
Right. Yeah. It's like Trulieve contacted them, and I think, it's got to do with exactly what that story was about. That story was captivating because it talked about Lorna a lot more than any other articles did. It went into detail, and it shared her story pretty well. And to not have it, for one, it's devastating to have something like this happen where it's just retracted from the internet. You can no longer see this article. And it's also pulling information away from people who deserve to have information. This isn't, it's their right to know. And this is, you know, Leafly's journalism. I mean, uh, it's so shady, but it's so exactly what they would do. You know, it's almost like it's surprising and mind-boggling that they would do this, but at the same time, it's not because of who they are. It's not surprising what they would do. I don't know.
That's
I'm
how
sure
that's how I feel every time I hear a True Leave story. I'm like, oh yeah, that sounds about right.
that. Yep, yep. It's
If
crazy.
it weren't so if it weren't so expected, it would be surprising.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's hey, it's $1 million ad buy. You can't be running stories when you're paying people to do the opposite.
Right. Yeah. It's
That was
insane.
a bummer too because it's a killer story. It's really I thought it was the best story of the year in the weed industry. And I've been reading a lot of stories.
Yep. Yeah, no, it definitely was a very well written story. It talked about her story and captivated people, I think. And I think that's specifically why they targeted it and took it down, is because, people start to understand things when they understand people's backstory, where they came from, what happened. When they have all the details, then they can make a better in context kind of conclusion of how they feel about something. And that story did that really well. And I think that it got a lot of attention because of it, and it stirred a lot of things up and got people talking. And I think truly, and specifically Kim Rivers, hated that. They just want to sweep this under the rug,
Hmm.
and they got scared, and they spent more money. Like, they haven't even paid the cost of Lorna's funeral. They have not paid her mom, who's suffering without her here on this earth, a single dime, but they'll pay to have an ad taken down about her. It's just like this kind of like behavior is absolutely insane, and it's it's so devastating to watch and listen to, all of like the just terrible things that they do and have done.
Shameless.
Yeah, I'm interested because, you know, I think that this isn't the first time that they've paid to have something taken down, and I think that there's more information out there, and that's why another reason why I keep talking about this is like I really want more workers to come forward. I want them to talk about what's going on, what happened, what they experienced, so that people can change things, that people can come together and heal and use their voice. And then we have Trulieve that's just like intimidating people, taking away information, taking down stories, trying to sweep it under the rug. And they're still, profiting and making money while we all just make pennies a day trying to scrape by.
Nick James, I hope their company burns to the ground for doing these things. This is absolutely appalling. I think this is one of my LinkedIn. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Thanks for chiming in here, Nick. Hmm.
Absolutely. It's so bittersweet to see them pull out of Massachusetts recently. Like they announced they were going to be closing down their facility there. And, you know, number one, it's absolutely disgusting behavior. Um, I've I've heard, some talk from people on the inside that they were worried about it unionizing and closed it down and did that with all of their entire dispensaries in Massachusetts as well. They closed all of them as well. And are, had announced that they're closing and will be soon. And they had a National Labor Relations Board hearing just a week prior, and I was out side with multiple people talking to their employees just a week prior. So it's all in the timing. Their licenses weren't up. In fact, they just renewed one of them or two of them. So it's like if you're gonna renew your licenses and go through all of this stuff, then why pull out all of a sudden?
So,
It's
so you think they're pulling out because they're because of the union stuff?
absolutely I do. Yeah. Yes.
And I do have a note in my. I'm glad you did that segue for me because the next note in my thing is ask Danny about unions and union busting.
Yeah, yeah, perfect. I mean, the UFCW union, and all of their organizers and their directors, they've really been very helpful in coming out and really like trying their hardest to get to workers, and to let them know that there's even like I didn't even know. I was a worker in cannabis for years and I didn't know that there was a union. Like I had applied for a CNA position and I knew that they had a union because they gave me a card about their union there when I applied. So like why don't we have the same things in cannabis? Like I really I don't understand it because every answer I come back to is that there was no policy, there was no thought put in to workers whatsoever when all of these regulations were instilled, 5 whatever years ago, and they need to be redone. They need to be rethought because somebody forgot about workers. A lot of people forgot about workers, and that
Forgot or didn't care.
right. Like, it's and that's like the answer that I keep coming back to that like my brain doesn't want to have is like the truth that these like a lot of policy in this country are based on racist grounds, on classist issues that they didn't think about the working class. They didn't think about, how they could protect workers. Um, and they didn't take into consideration anything that happened in the legacy market and lessons learned from that. Like I have a friend that worked in hydroponic grow in California and Hawaii and did that for years. And she had an allergic reaction to cannabis dust. And they, an illegal place, um, gave her a respirator and let her change her job and go do something different. But these same principles are not even followed in this legal market. It's like, it's just like so appalling to me, and it makes me so angry. And that's, just fuels everything that I do to make sure that, people are heard and that these workers get what they deserve, which is a place that they can go where they're not, taken advantage of, exploited, or given a work environment that is just so terrible. It's like, you know, the Wild West in there, and they just do what they want and follow no rules or regulations.
I want to sneak this comment in from Nick again here. He said, "Why are air quality checks not an OSHA standard for these jobs, same as every other as every industry? I look deep into this story as an owner to ensure it never happens at my facilities. So you're making positive changes. Just know that." And then he says, "My number one concerns are consumer health and my workers. I have EpiPens on site and tons of respirators." Good on you, Nick.
Yeah, absolutely. And honestly, it's really because OSHA has no policies about cannabis. OSHA is a federal agency, meaning they can't really put funding into something that is federally illegal by their rules and regulations. And so they have no cannabis research, or really, they just recently started putting out some trainings on cannabis stuff, but it's very minimal. And it's not like they're getting that information out. They are it's just it's there if you look really hard. And it's should be all of their procedures should be, and legally they need to be followed, and all manufacturing companies need to do that. Like, they are supposed to check their air quality. And even if, cannabis dust is not listed as a harmful, toxic, or hazardous, chemical or anything like that in their, you know, um, the handbook that they have with like a listing all of the different air quality like limitations and what they should be at, and things like that. It's still a particle not otherwise recognized technically, and it still has a limit that needs to be followed.
Right. I was gonna say because maybe cannabis dust specifically isn't in there, but I do believe that like dust, like generally is in the OSHA guidelines, and you know, it's just like one of those kind of a common courtesy, like maybe don't leave your employees in a fucking dusty ass moldy room or something.
Right, absolutely. And like it, there's so much that has to be done still. Like, research needs to be done on also like the mold that goes into that air quality, and like um pesticide use and radiation use, and how all these things could affect the workers. Like, nobody has done research on this. There's very minimal. And so a health hazard evaluation, which was scheduled for Trulieve to kind of have as part of their settlement with OSHA for Lorna's death, they were supposed to have a NIOSH health hazard evaluation, and that would have kind of given a bit more insight into what employees, deal with, what are the main stressors and factors and hazards in the workplace. And it would also have provided them a plan at Trulieve in Holyoke to fix all of the problems that they have with their, occupational hazards, and give them, an opportunity without fines, judgments, anything like that, to like work with somebody to improve their ventilation or their training or anything like that. Um, but they're closing. And so now that health hazard evaluation is not no longer going forward, of course.
Oh wow, so they got out of that by closing. Wow.
Yes, yes. just
Nick
we
says again, I want to sneak this in here real quick. He says literally even a cheap AC Infinity air scrubber, 8-inch one with carbon scrubbers could have avoided this.
yeah, it's
I don't know if
terrible.
it's true, but I'm going to take your word for it, Nick.
There's a lot of pretty simple fixes for uh this kind of a problem, like, and especially like a company like Trulieve has the money to do this. Like, I don't know why they're acting like they're you know bankrupt or something. So it's, they're still acquiring licenses and all of this stuff. It's like, so anyways, I think, this HHE, or this health hazard evaluation, as it is called, it would have provided a lot of insight, and they no longer are going through with it now that they're closing. Um,
Well, lucky
I
them.
have, however, schedule like I have, however, connected um NIOSH with a local small cannabis company who is willing to invite NIOSH in to do studies on their air quality and their cannabis dust and all of that, and how it is for their workers, so that we can at least have some kind of information and some kind of research that is kind of investigated and maybe opens up other doors and opportunities for more companies that want to do good by their workers and invite NIOSH in for a health hazard evaluation, so that they can make their reports, maybe get more OSHA funding, maybe for policy change and all of this stuff, and at the end of the day, improve the quality of their work environment for workers.
That's super cool. Is that a company you'd care to name?
Yeah, absolutely. So Boston Bud Factory in Holyoke uh, is a locally owned cannabis company. They're a social equity company. Most people don't know about them. They're very have a very small storefront, but they also are a product manufacturer. They take in third-party products and will produce product out of them. They're really like starting to expand. It's a really great company. All their owner is also a bud tender sometimes. Like, he'll come up and help you at the desk. He's a great guy. His name's Frank Daly. Local guy, lives in Springfield. So it's just uh very different than Trulieve. However, they process flower there. They take in products to process. So they will have, cannabis dust. They'll have employees who may experience asthmatic symptoms or anything like that that may be very common in this industry, as we expect. And then they'll be able to you know do pulmonary function tests on them to understand what exactly is causing this, what exacerbates it, what makes it better. So I'm very, very, very grateful that Boston Bud Factory has, really, taken us up on this kind of ask of them, um, to come together and welcome them in and really help us get information, because Trulieve is not willing to help anybody at this point. And so yeah, I'm really grateful he stepped up to the plate, Frank, um and was able to request that. So more to come on that when they schedule.
I like it, man. That's a super cool little project there. It's not only is it a good look for your company, but you're also helping science. I
Yeah,
That's a win-win, I think.
absolutely,
Assuming
absolutely.
you don't fail the test miserably and everyone finds out about it.
Right.
Good
But
luck, Frank.
so that's like really what NIOSH is like. They're not OSHA. They're not there to fine. They're there to help. They do they're industrial hygienists that come to your site. They inspect and kind of look at all your facility and take in any kind of hazard that could be there, or anything that might cause workers to have certain different types of stressors and hazards. And they'll combine that with talking to workers about what they're experiencing, what they're going through, and they provide feedback. They provide solutions. They work with the company to find, ways to improve. And they do this all for free. And so there's no fines. They have no authority to fine these people for doing wrong. They are simply there to provide insight on how to improve it and to collect information on, kind of what's happening so that they can find better ways to improve in OSHA and NIOSH and training, and research projects and things like that. So this is really like a win-win. Like, even if it comes up, like, let's say that Frank needs to improve in an area, at least now, one, we have that information that this is an area that is likely to be hazardous because most, people, I mean, it's all everybody's doing kind of like the same thing. We're all just grinding up flour with a processor in a somewhat small room, and you know that's pretty normal. So anything that comes to us from this would be helpful and beneficial for a lot of people. And it also sets a standard that nobody yet has set in this industry of doing good things. Like, being of good character and, like, helping others, like, it's kind of such a cutthroat industry sometimes that these people forget why they even got into it in the first place, and that's what I love about Frank and Boston Bud Factory is, like, they keep that close to home, and I really appreciate that about them, and they're gonna be setting a standard here and with inviting them in, and, willing to improve, and to hear out their workers, and to listen in and make change for the good. And I hope that more companies step forward and do the same thing. I think that they will, so I'm looking forward to that.
Can we get Frank on the show?
Yeah, I think that he would be willing.
That'd
Um,
be sick.
yeah, absolutely. He's a great guy, and I think you'd love to talk to him.
Cool. Frank, let's do it. Look, I got we're getting close to the end here. I got one more for you, and I feel like this is a good one here. I want to ask you about this Cannabis Workers Coalition. I feel like that's maybe a good place to wrap this up here.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, since I kind of started talking about this, Mike has been able to get the information out, and that has attracted um, more people to kind of like come to me and talk to me about what the problems were there and kind of how we can solve them. And people are willing to, like, for instance, like Mascosh reached out to me. Massachusetts, they have a coalition for occupational safety and health, um, and they've been absolutely, instrumental in helping me with all of these things and organize, kind of like labor movement type events and things like that, but also recognizing Lorna, on, their annual, Workers' Day memorial that they held. We had that at the State House, and they put out, press releases and reports on her death, and, um, they've also they've joined a lot of them from their health technical committee, uh a lot of really amazing, super helpful people who have a lot of information and knowledge that I simply don't have. Um, they've all kind of come together with me, with some organizers from the union, with some national Kosh members, with people from all around, like Stacy Wachowski is part of the coalition, a great person, and a lot of these people that are just like kind of coming in to see what they can do to help. We've kind of built this coalition, so it really it it takes into all people from all backgrounds, just trying to help make change for the better in the cannabis industry for workers, as far as workers' rights and their health and safety goes. And there's been a lot of people that sometimes these phone calls have like 30 people on them, all talking about Lorna, all talking about what we can do to change, make change, policies that need to be changed, who to talk to, making connections. And I think that we are kind of on the cusp of making a lot of change in this industry. And I think what it's going to take is the CCC, really stepping forward and instituting some kind of action or enforceable way of making change. Um, it'll take, Massachusetts probably, policies and bills at the state house. And it'll take also workers coming forward and feeling comfortable enough to do so in this kind of environment where workers are told to be quiet and not talk about this to start with, and if they do, they're fired. And so I think with all of those kind of things coming together and research being done, that the coalition can be really helpful in making change. And I'm really grateful for all the people that have kind of come together and stepped forward to help with this.
Well said. Killing it. There
Thanks.
was one more thing I want to ask you about, and it's the thumbnail, the sign. Trulieve killed Lorna McMurray.
Yeah.
What was the sign? What did you make the sign for?
So I held that sign out in front of Trulieve, uh, on the day we were doing, um, well, the day I found out that Trulieve was going to be closing their doors in Massachusetts. I knew that they had a meeting scheduled with all of their staff at 9 a.m. And I was like, I'm gonna go stand out on the sidewalk and I'm gonna make sure that they don't forget, because this is it's uh, nobody's done anything. This company has not even told their workers about the fact that somebody died at their job before they got there. Uh, they don't have respirators still. They don't have training still. Nobody's finding them. They're doing as they wish. And as soon as we're about to get information that could be beneficial for the rest of their workers and workers all throughout the state and this country, they close so that it can't go through. Um, you know, that's union busting right there. I can guarantee you, there's a lot of that and throughout their company. And, I think, I held the sign out and I made sure that all their workers know that Trulieve killed Lorna McMurray. And they should not forget that. Something needs to be done. Still, it's been over a year since she died. Still nothing has been changed, nothing's been done. People are still in power that shouldn't be. And uh I don't think that Kim Rivers will ever own up to any kind of accountability. But I'm certainly going to try and do my best to make sure that they are held accountable and that the state changes things to make sure that these companies and bad actors cannot come into our communities and destroy them further. Because that's what this comes down to. This is another community that was disproportionately impacted by the war on drugs. Trulieve was supposed to come in and save their community and help them all find jobs, except for they didn't pay them and they killed one of them and nobody knew about it for a long time. And and they still thrive and profit nonetheless. While the community is in shambles, her mother is, beside herself just trying to survive, as you can expect. And they go on just to another state. So yeah, it's been interesting.
Yeah, I want to blast this up here before the end here. This is Nick James again. Feel free to add me, Danny. Happy to incorporate some of what you're doing into the emerging market in the Midwest. The emerging market's the best places to make change. Stopping issues before they become a systemic feature rather than a bug is a big way to make lasting change. Would be happy to help in Midwest and set the standards with my company and supporting your mission.
Cool. Yeah, awesome. Thank you. I'll definitely reach out. I appreciate
Yeah,
it. Yeah.
cool. Well, Danny, I'm out of shit. I want to thank you so much, Danny Carson, everybody, former Trulieve employee, labor rights advocate. Now is the time. If I always leave the last word for my guests, so if you got any parting shots, shameless plugs, or shout outs that you want to give, now is the time. Thank you so much for being here. This has been a fantastic interview.
Yeah,
Thank
thank you so much. I appreciate your time, Caleb. Really, my last shout out is just to Thank you to everybody that's supported supported telling Lorna's story. Thank you to my wife who watches my daughter so I can do things like this and get this story out. If any workers want to reach out to me, want to talk anonymously, my Instagram's Danny, Massachusetts. I'm here for you. Please, anybody that's listening, use your voice and tell Lorna's story wherever you are, wherever spaces that you could be in, and get people talking about safety in cannabis, because people don't know, they're unaware, and they need to be aware of what's happening and the real impact this is having on thousands of workers in the state.
Bang. Great place to wrap it up. Ladies and gentlemen, Danny Carson, I'm your host, Caleb Teskey, reminding you the devil's in the details, and the details are in the fine print. Peace.